Hey everybody, I'm Sierra.
And I'm Ben.
And welcome back to another episode of The Unsolved Couple, where every week Ben and I recap one of the original gateway drugs in a true crime.
Unsolved mysteries.
Before we get started, I want to share with you another podcast that uncovers not only true crime, but dives into the world of everything mysterious and creepy.
Where true crime meets the supernatural and the unexplained.
Where true crime and chills go hand in hand.
Welcome to Total Conundrum, the podcast that explores the dark, the eerie, and the downright mysterious.
Join us as we embark on a spine-tingling journey through the mysteries that keep you up at night.
We're diving deep into true crime stories, uncovering the most baffling cases, and exploring the twisted minds behind them.
But we don't stop there. We're also exploring the paranormal, from haunted houses to cryptids and all the creepy things that go bump in the night. We've got it all. Bone-chilling tales, banter, and mind-boggling conundrums. You won't know whether to scream or laugh.
So grab your favorite snack, turn down the lights, and join us for a roller coaster ride of true crime and the supernatural, sprinkled with a bit of comic banter.
Stay curious, stay captivated, and let's dive into the world of Total Conundrum.
Now available on your favorite podcast platform. Get ready to be captivated, creeped out, and cracked up with Total Conundrum.
Okay, Season 2, Episode 12.
That's right.
Can you believe it that we're here?
Almost halfway through the second season.
I know, it feels like time is flying by.
This one, I might only have like 20, so we might even be already halfway.
Yeah. I mean, I remember at the beginning we talked about that we estimated, I did not count how many actual episodes of Unsolved Mysteries there was, and I think we came up with the number 600.
Yeah.
I wanted to call our listeners part of the 600 Club. But I have to find out actually how many episodes there are.
I thought you Googled it and it was around that.
I Googled how many seasons there were. And I think we just estimated based off those numbers.
I don't know.
But I do like calling our listeners the 600 Club. Do you know what that's in reference to?
The 700 Club.
What was that about?
I honestly don't know.
I mean, I have a Google machine right in front of me. I could look it up.
Yeah, but that destroys the fun. I think it was some religion kind of. You know what? I
thought it was like a pay to pray.
Maybe.
Like you could call in and donate and someone would pray for you. But I also think they did like stories and I don't know. Someone out there tell us
We're
what
throwing out guesses. I mean, we could technically look it up and find out.
Yeah, but I don't even know if it's on anymore. But it was like on. Either was it on in the middle of the night or was it on like public access in the day?
It was late at night.
Yeah.
It was on some network or public access. I don't know. I saw it. I never watched it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call our listeners part of the sick. They're
you
in
gotta know what.
They're in the, yeah.
You got to know what the number is.
I got to know what the number is. All right. I will look into that for next week. But
all right.
How this episode, I am going to guess originally this aired around Christmas time because we've got a December 24th and we've got a Santa story. They called it Santa's Baby. Was this pre-Mariah Carey Santa Baby?
Yeah, Mariah Carey came out in...
Wait, her song's not called Santa Baby. That was Marilyn Monroe who sang Santa Baby, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, hers was sometime in the 90s, mid or early 90s.
Yeah. So obviously it's summertime. It's not Christmas, but we can get into the holly jolly spirits. I'm going to start us off with, this is a first for Unsolved Mysteries. The theme of this segment was called Final Appeal. I don't think we've done anything like this before.
Well, it kind of did. We did it with that guy that was accused And convicted, I think. Or no.
No. Remember the judge threw that without precedence? Are you
That's
talking
right.
about the son who...
But he was accused of killing his mom.
Yeah, and he was trying to...
But I guess this is a little different. This is a story of a guy that actually was convicted. They tell you that right off the bat.
And just, we'll get into it after I get through this, but I'm upset about a few things, and it might not be what people think I'm going to be upset about, but any hoozles, we will get into it. December 22nd, 1967, John, then 41-year-old, and his 4-year-old son, Joby, arrived home to pick up his mom and wife, Donna. The family was planning to going Christmas shopping together. John said that when they returned from Joby, his son's was at nursing school.
Nursery school.
No, yeah. Not
he
nursing
wasn't
school.
In nursing
he was
school.
a prodigy at 4 years old. He was
Not in nursing school.
Dang it. This, I think, auto-corrected as I was typing my notes, so it might say nursing school throughout the whole thing.
Time. I hope it does. Anyway.
I'm going to guess that preschool is what we would call it now, right?
I'm going to guess. This was in the 60s, right?
Mm-hmm. So son and dad walk into the apartment calling out for Donna, the mother and wife, who did not respond. So they started looking around for her. The first thing that struck John was that all of the lights were on and 2 television sets. I have thoughts on that later.
That's a lot of television
sets. It's a lot of noise. A lot of noise traffic, in my opinion. Just ponder on that as we listen to the rest of this. John noticed feet sticking out of the utility room when he entered into the kitchen. He then discovered his wife's Donna body lying on the floor. According to John, she was not breathing. Her legs were askew. Her skirt was pushed up over her legs. He turned off the light, reached around, grabbed their son, ran out of the apartment, and called out to a neighbor, and then called the police. 5 months later, he would be on trial for his life. It's a little dramatic. That's what they said in Unsolved Mysteries.
I mean, it is your life.
He wasn't...
I mean, it's the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You're going on trial for a murder.
I guess when I hear you're on trial for life, that this was going to be a death sentence. It's not. And we're going to find out. He's convicted eventually. And he wasn't even convicted for life. No. So, today, John is serving a 23, that's it, year sentence in the Dixon Correctional Center for his wife's murder. He could be incarcerated until 2006. Is this a crime that he committed or not committed? That's why we're going to be here asking these questions today.
That's Unsolved Mysteries Quest.
Mm-hmm. It is not uncommon for a convict to stoutly maintain their innocence. But in John's case, he is not alone. Though some say he is a murderer, others are convinced he was framed. For him, this debate is literally a matter of life and death. After suffering 5 heart attacks.
That's a lot of heart attacks.
I know.
To survive.
I know. He is in desperate need of a heart transplant. But because he's a convicted murderer, the operation he needs has been denied to him.
Well, you're in prison. It's not like he got out and you can't. He's in prison. You can't get on.
Yeah. You can't get on the donor list when you are a convicted murderer sitting in prison.
Yeah.
There are other people contributing to society who are going to be on that list, and you will not be. Yeah. All right, so we're going to get a little history on this gentleman here. During the mid-1960s, when Martin Luther King dreamed of equality for all Americans, John marched by his side. Which, here's the thing, left, right, or center, this is an incredible experience for this person to be able to be a part of this in the inner circle of Martin Luther King. He was actually Martin Luther King's personal physician whenever he was in Chicago. Chicago at the time, though, was a racial battleground. It was a heavily divided city. John was often on the front lines. He even went so far to provide medical services for members of the Black Panther, the Weathermans, and other extreme revolutionary groups. Not surprisingly, John was viewed with hostility by the Chicago police. Fair. After John discovered Donna's body on December 22nd, 1967, the Chicago police responded to his call and arrived at his apartment. Near her bodies, investigators discovered 4 shell casings from a 9mm or a .38 caliber gun. They assumed that she had been shot 4 times. An autopsy confirmed that she had been strangled with her ironing cord and then shot in the head, neck, and shoulder. Injuries to her hand indicated that she had tried to defend herself from the bullets. The autopsy also showed that she died within an hour of being found. John was an avid gun collector and says that the police asked him if he had any weapons in his collection capable of firing a 9mm bullet. He gave them a Luger pistol. Police determined that that gun had not been fired recently and was not the murder weapon. They then asked if he owned any .38 caliber weapons. He gave them a high standard pistol. And I should say it's high as in HI. I don't know if that's a brand, high standard pistol. That was also ruled out as the murder weapon. The police would later claim that John denied owning any other guns capable of firing those bullets.
Is this new research? Because they say nothing in this thing
Yeah, sorry,
about
this
a
is kind of a
38
mixture of me
finding.
with some of my research, yeah.
I was going to say, because there's nothing in there that talks about a .38 caliber. They just say a 9mm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But she was killed with a 9mm.
Yeah. That same evening at the police station, John gave detectives his alibi. He told them that he had left his home at 9 o'clock that morning, dropped his son off at nursery school.
Not nursing school.
And then went to work at his clinic. He is a doctor. He left there at 11:30. What a short day. Imagine like strolling into work at 9 a.m. and being done by 11:30.
I can't imagine it. It doesn't happen in my work day or anyone else's work day. I think for most Americans' work day.
Yeah.
But, doctors, amen.
So then he drives back to his son's school and claims his story is that his son was waiting for him outside at 11:35 a.m. We're going to get a lot of times, but this ends up becoming literally the crux of this.
The timeline is heavily weighed upon.
Yeah.
In both cases.
In both cases, on both sides.
That's what I'm saying. I'm talking for the prosecution and his
So
innocence.
after leaving the school, they had planned to go see Donna's cousin. So his wife's cousin. Have you ever made a lunch date with any of my cousins?
Yeah, but I don't know.
It was weird. And even I will say, Maxine Brown also says that this had never happened before. This was not a common occurrence.
Oh, okay.
These lunch things.
I just don't know. There's many family dynamics that are different.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never lived.
That's true. Maybe him and Maxine had been friends for years before. I don't know. It just seemed a little different to me.
They did say that it was like a last minute thing.
And so we're gonna get into that. Yeah, he arrived at her workplace and she actually says, "Hey, I've gotten really busy at work today. Some of us actually have to work more than a couple of hours." I added that part. And she couldn't join him. John then tells the police that he proceeded home at that point and arrived home just before noon at around 11:57 when he discovered his wife's body. The detectives asked John if he would take a lie detector test. A friend who was with him at the police station said he didn't think it was a good idea. Again, fair. I, having watched enough true crime, I will never take a lie detector test voluntarily.
Yeah,
they're not admissible.
We did the story, and I told mine of taking one, and after now experiencing one, I put zero weight into them.
Yeah, and if someone denies taking one, I don't put any weight into that.
I don't put any weight that's guilt
I think back then it was different.
Absolutely,
but
in the 60s it was probably gold.
But instead, he actually asks if he could do a nitrate test. This test would have determined whether he had fired a gun. I'm going to guess what we would call now like a gun residue test.
Yeah, you would think that'd be something you'd
weirdly enough, the Chicago police didn't have the ability to conduct that test.
It must have been newer.
It must have been, yeah. He was released that night without any charges or held on anything. January 22nd, 1968, so about a month later, the police made an unexpected visit to John's clinic. There, they arrested him for his wife, Donna's murder. He thinks that the police felt great pressure from African-American press members at the time. He believes that they saw a chance, quote, to arrest him, not noting that about 85% of murders are committed by family members or close friends. This is like a direct quote from him. So again, I don't know if any of these facts are true, but this is what he's telling us on Unsolved Mysteries. He does not think that they thought that they would be able to convict him, but arrested him anyways, which is a weird mindset to have.
He's just saying he thinks the police were pressured into making an arrest.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't have he's saying that they didn't have the facts.
Yeah.
According to John.
So, April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King is murdered in Memphis. And riots start to break out in Chicago. So, we definitely have a pot boiling over.
Yeah, I think the whole country was.
Yes. And I think you get these big cities in this kind of Bible Belt, Midwest stretch area. It was dangerous to be an African American at that time. It was scary. Let me see where I am in my notes here. Okay. So racial tensions in the city basically become all time at their highest. And a very polarizing atmosphere is felt throughout the city. John's trial began May 15th. So literally
just over
a month. Yeah. And I will say, this is something, his jury ends up being comprised of 11 white people and 1 African American. The prosecutor's case was primarily built on 3 points. This is what the prosecutors tell us. First, although the murder weapon was never found, they claim that the bullets that killed Donna could have been fired from a Walther PPK. That was part of John's collection, a gun they maintained he denied owning. According to the prosecutor, his name's Patrick, one of the detectives testified that after they received the 2 other guns from John, they returned to him and said, "Do you happen to have a Walther PPK?" He said, "No, and I never have." However, according to the prosecution, it turned out that a Walther PPK had been sold a year before the murder to a man named William Hooks. He was one of John's good friends. When the police questioned Hooks, he informed them that he had bought the gun for John as a birthday present in February of 1967. He had also given John a box and a brochure for the Walther PPK, a manufacturer's target, extra clips, and none of this was ever found in John's apartment.
It's not clips, it's magazines.
Okay, princess. Tomato.
Totally different.
Then why are they referred to as clips?
I don't know why people refer to them as clips. They're magazines.
That's the slang for it. That's what we say on the streets. And that's also the same people that turn their gun to the side in the movies. They have the clips. I'll give you guys one guess how Ben feels about any time someone shoots a gun in a movie. They do the twist to the side.
Let's move on.
So, okay. For everyone asking what is going on here, I'm just trying to give you, this is laid out once again, very weird.
Well, it takes up a lot of this episode.
Yeah.
Like we're trying to give you the highlights
so
here.
We're at trial. We have somebody saying, I bought this gun for him as a birthday present. I mean,
or as a present.
that's a crazy birthday present, but
Yeah, but if you're a doctor and
he was a
friends
doctor,
are doctors,
and it seems like he lived in a very affluential part of Chicago. Like
everyone knew he was an avid gun collector.
Yeah. Later in the trial, Donna's brother, who's going to come back again, testified that John had told him that his Walther PPK and another gun, a collection item worth about $1,500, had been stolen from the bedside on the day of the murder. However, following the confusion, he did not immediately notice the theft. After being confronted by Hook's statement, John also told a story to the police. A tipster, however, told detectives that John had thrown the gun into Lake Michigan. A ballistics expert testified that the bullets that killed Donna could have only come from the rare Walther PPK 38 caliber automatic pistol, the same type of gun that John owned.
That was not an unsolved mystery.
Yes, I know. The prosecution's second assertion is that the 4 shell casings found next to Donna's body had come from a box of German-made Geico 38 caliber ammunition in a paper bag that they had discovered when they searched John's weapon cabinet. 4 shells were missing from the box. The same type of ammunition that killed Donna. Finally, the prosecutors claimed that John not only
were specific bullets, like not just any, they were German. They were distinct.
And there was 4 shots fired and there's 4 missing from his.
Also, the only weird thing is a lot of, you don't just put 4 bullets in your gun. Like if you're loading a magazine, you load it all the way. Nope. But I don't know this gun, and it's older. Maybe it only I actually don't know most guns.
But here is going to be the additional nail on the coffin. You don't have to actually prove motive in a court of law. Did you know that?
Yes.
Well, okay. I was kind of thinking that you didn't know it, and I was going to give you this.
You don't have to prove motive.
But for most juries, it is highly appreciated for them to have some grasping and understanding. Why would someone do this?
Well, that's human nature. We want to know what drove a person to do such a thing, right? Or we want to believe that there was some type of reasoning.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, obviously motive helps drive your case to try to find evidence in that.
Yeah.
So
I just love when a prosecutor starts his opening arguments that reminding the jurors that it's not his responsibility to find a motive. I'm like, just try to, if you have one, let's use it. But prosecutors in John's case say that at the time of her murder, their marriage was in trouble. He had been having an affair with Shirley Hudson, a nurse at his clinic, for 6 years. He also had an affair with a 3rd woman. Did you know that? No.
I didn't do a ton of research on this one because I knew you were doing it. I looked into it a little. I'll bring in what I kind of looked into later.
Okay. So according to him, Donna knew about the affairs. And I want you guys to pay attention to this. He said that he had asked her for a divorce, but she didn't want one. So they basically came up with this arrangement, is what some people might call it. Now, mind you, we are only getting his testimony on that.
Again, that's got to be because he doesn't, I don't know. The guy, he just openly admits it on Unsolved Mysteries.
And he acts as if we are all idiots that this is a problem.
Well, he acts like, why is this even a big deal?
Yeah.
Why would anyone be concerned about this?
It wasn't a problem. He says, anyways, 24 hours after his wife's murder, he, his mistress, and his children left Chicago and went on a chateau skiing vacation in Vail, Colorado.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
They didn't say that in Unsolved Mysteries either.
I love putting in these little nuggets.
Well, here's the thing. I watched this twice. because the story was told a little confusing.
Yes, because it was told a little confusing, and
you only get one side of the story.
And the victim side seems to really get left out in this, and that's my biggest thing. I felt the need, instead of hyper focusing, because here's the thing, you guys, I looked, there's almost no information on Donna. There's no life story about her. I don't know anything because...
Well, but Unsolved Mysteries tells us that he's the one that came to him. He's trying to plead for his innocence, and he wants it because he's this. So you get this. Like I said, I watched it several times. I wanted to try to understand, and I did. You're only getting what he wants you to know. Yeah. And he's saying all this stuff is crazy. Yep. And I'm not
I haven't sprinkled a lot in, but I have sprinkled just a few extra tidbits that I found out as I was doing my research.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not discounting
and things, in my personal opinion,
but...
that Unsolved Mysteries should have not left out.
Yeah. I mean, there's
so prosecutors theorized that John killed Donna to get out of a bad marriage, or to at least get out of his marriage without divorcing. John admits that he had an affair, however, that this was not hot on the burner, whatever that means, affair, and nothing was pressing about their relationship. Literally in the very next segment, he says he claims that it was mutually accepted. Shirley never pressed him on it, and he never thought of leaving Donna. He says it does not make sense for him to suddenly kill her. You guys, this guy gaslights you, because he literally told us not too long ago that she had asked for a divorce. And then he proceeds to tell us he had no reason to leave her. Pick a lane, dude. Prosecutors' theory was that John had planned to kill Donna on the day, although not sure why he chose that day. They believed he had planned to leave his clinic, go home, kill her, and then pick up his son, go to lunch with her cousin, and then have lunch, basically creating this alibi.
Airtight alibi.
And then witnesses. Have someone else enter the home and find the body, hopefully. He would be nowhere near. Detectives had learned on the day of the murder was the first time John had ever asked Maxine to go to lunch with him. He had called her around 10 p.m. the night before to set it up. She thought it was a little strange. Prosecutors believed that he was going to go into the apartment with him and find Donna's body potentially, so he would have a witness to the discovery. The prosecutors also noted there was no signs of forced entry in the apartment, which was equipped with a special burglar-proof lock. It appeared that Donna knew her killer and let them in. She did not appear to have any sort of sexual assault. Nothing seemed to have been stolen, and John had initially told the police that nothing was missing. Some of John's statements were disputed by other witnesses. He initially told the police he had to pick up his son outside the nursery school. However, the teacher said that John came in and picked him up. She distinctly remembers him helping getting his jacket on. The teacher also testified that he likely came in between 11:45 and 11:50, 10 minutes later than what he initially told the police. John also told the police he did not check on Donna because he knew she was dead. That's a big question. If this man was a doctor, he didn't even check for signs of life.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
He claimed that he noticed lividity in her legs. However, a neighbor who was also a doctor said that she came over and examined Donna's body right after he'd been outside freaking out and saw no lividity. So for anyone who knows, lividity is when your heart stops, your blood stops pumping through your body, and your blood pools to the lowest part where gravity is. It happens a few hours after death, typically. John's defense was simple. He and his attorney were certain that his alibi was airtight. They maintained it was impossible for him to be in two places at once. The alibi was strengthened by the next door neighbor saying that she came home from a shopping trip around 11 that morning, and 20 minutes later, she heard several loud shots. And if that had been the shooting, according to John, he was still at the clinic at his time. Teresa testified about 15 to 20 minutes later that John came and discovered Donna's body. It is believed that he left at his clinic at 11:30, but she heard shots at 11:20. So we start to kind of get these, kind of some things that happened at trial. Surprisingly, though, this testimony had little to zero impact on the jury. The prosecution pursued its theory that the murder had taken place after John left his clinic. Detectives testified that they had driven the time on John's route that morning of the murder, 6 different occasions, and various on weather conditions and speed limits were appeared up to 30 miles an hour. Detectives determined that John had enough time to kill Donna before he picked up his son. They said that the 2.8-mile journey from the clinic to the apartment took a minimum of 6 minutes and a maximum of 12. They suggested that he may have left his clinic earlier than he told the police, which would have given him more time. However, in one of the trial's most dramatic moments, the defense challenged this timeline. They basically asked the police, did you account for having the child with you? Like going in and getting the child.
Going in and getting the kid.
And having a kid with you where you went to Maxine's office to try to get her for a lunch. And the detective admits, oopsie daisy. No, we didn't account for anything. Here's my thing.
What did that remind you of? There's a movie.
I don't know. What one?
Oh, real quick.
Yeah.
Remember that movie Sully? About that.
Sully?
Yeah, it's that pilot that pretty much saved everybody.
I think I fell asleep during that movie.
He lands the plane in the New York Harbor.
Yeah.
And when they were all doing an investigation, they were saying that after the hit, he could have made it to the airport. And he brings up the point, well, did you account for, you guys know instantly what I'm supposed to do the minute the birds strike the plane. He goes, but you didn't even account for me trying to figure out what happened and then taking that time. And when they added in that time, at least how the movie makes it much more dramatic,
Yeah.
They couldn't make
moment.
it, so they had to. Anyways, that was the one thing.
This is my thing with this. Both the prosecutor and the defense and people that are going to come into play later in this, because I'm already over talking about this guy. This driving we've heard this before. You can never reaccount for perfect conditions that same day. Traffic, you can't account for the adrenaline. It just cannot be done.
Yeah, I think it gives you a ballpark, but it's nothing as concrete.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a ballpark's a great idea, but yeah, to use that for either...
They were just trying to say that
there was no cell phone data to track. The Murdaugh murders literally tracked the Murdaugh guys' cell phone.
What you're talking about.
I know, we're not going to get into that right now, but they used his cell phone to track because he almost did the same thing. He killed his son and his wife and then sped to his father's house or something. And it was it couldn't be done, but they pulled his cell phone data and it could be, but again, it was hard to recreate that without some sort of concrete evidence, which back then they did not have.
Yeah.
All right. So anyways, long story short, he's found guilty. Bada bing, bada boom. The defense immediately argued that the Chicago riots had prejudiced the trial. So John was free on a $5,000 bail while he spent the next 3 years appealing his verdict.
This was the crazy part.
And
he got to be out of jail the entire time he was appealing.
We're going to get corruption here in a little while, so I'm just going to tell you this right now. It turns out that the judge was bribed, and he goes to prison for multi-issues later.
Okay.
And
so there's already problems.
There's already problems. And there was actually
bribed in this case or just
bribed in this case. Yeah. It was actually later discovered that the judge took a bribe from Donna's brother, who believed his brother-in-law's innocence. And
so he was bribed for John.
Yeah.
Not against
him.
Oh.
And so it turns out that he was supposed to overrule the jury, but didn't, but then kept the bribe money and instead basically lowered his bond and allowed him to be out while he went through the appeal process, which is not a normal thing.
Well, I was going to say, they say in Unsolved Mysteries, he appealed it and for 3 years.
And not only that, did he appeal it during those 3 years? He was not on probation or anything because he moves to Wyoming at the time, marries his girlfriend. Okay. And during the time, don't worry, he not only marries his girlfriend, he divorces her, marries the other woman he was having an affair with, divorces her, and then gets back with the original nurse.
Well, they left all
Yeah.
that out.
So long story short, he tries to go all the way up to the Supreme Court to hear his case. Everything's denied, immediately to jail. And he is ordered back to return to prison to start his sentence, right? And so at this point, he jumps bail, goes to New York, and flees the country. He gone.
To Africa.
Yeah. In 1972, John was arrested in Sudan for carrying foreign papers. However, by the time the U.S. were notified, he had vanished again. For over a decade, you guys, he lives in Africa. At one point, he is the personal physician to Aidid Aman. I don't think that's how you pronounce it, but this man was a horrible human. He's the dictator of Uganda who served as the third president of Uganda from 71 and was overthrown in 79. He ruled as a military dictator and is today considered one of the most brutal despots in modern world history. Do you know what that means?
No.
Okay. Well, I looked it up. So let me tell you what it means. A ruler who exceeds power in a cruel, oppressive, and tyranny manner, often using violence and brutality to maintain control. They are characterized by having absolute power and using it to oppress others. So this is the man that he ends up snuggling up with. As his personal assistant, he also helped treat the wounded Ugandan soldiers during Operation Ettenby. Did you know what that is?
No.
Okay, I'll tell you about it real quick.
We're getting a history lesson here.
Yeah. Okay. So Operation Ettenby was the 1976 Israel counter-terrorist mission in Uganda. It was launched because in response to the hijacking of an international civilian airplane operated by Air France is basically hijacked by two Palestinian men with a stopover in Athens. The hijackers divert the flight to Libya and then on to Uganda, where they landed at the Uganda International Airport to be joined by other terrorists once they would landed in Uganda. The group enjoyed support from the dictator. He encouraged them. He said, yes, come on over. Okay? It basically goes on that they send in a secret mission to try to get, because they separated. They let a handful of people go, but they took everybody who were Israelis and Jews and kept them hostage at the airport and were threatening to kill them unless certain hostages or prisoners were released elsewhere. Okay, this is just highlights. So again.
So what's basically been going on still in the middle over there?
Yeah, so they end up sending in a secret mission to try to save these people, and a fight breaks out. And if anyone is into history and I'm getting this wrong, I do apologize. I just wanted to try to give an overview what this man did in the 10 years he was hiding. So several of the Ugandan military, now you put that in quotes, were injured in this recovery mission where they are the bad guys. He went in and treated those soldiers. So this is what he's doing. Okay? All right. So this dictator is ousted. John flees to South Africa, and in October of 1983, Chicago investigators learn that John is about to be expelled from Uganda on October 12th. They apprehend him at the airport, and he is brought back to Illinois to serve his sentence. John says that he is innocent, and people in the United States should not be found guilty, and since they got it wrong, he had to flee because that was the only way he could actually get justice. So he took justice into his own hands. Anyways, yeah. This is like the most narcissistic thing I've ever heard. They all got it wrong, so I'm just going to go do my own thing. Thank you, goodbye. He claims that evidence proves that he never committed this crime and he should not even be here. So, then we find out in 1986, the judge who's over John's trial receives an 18-year sentence for mail fraud, extortion, and racketeering, including the bribe that was used to try to get him out of jail or get him off of his thing. 2 investigators have since volunteered their services to John's case, and they go through and they try to say that they have found new evidence. Their new evidence is that the timelines don't match up. You guys, long story short, we hear all of these reasons as to why, once again, the jury got this wrong. And at the end of the day, the entire reason that we are here is that John has exhausted all of his avenues of appeal. His only hope is in clemency from the governor of Illinois, and it can't be delayed much longer, for John is in need of a heart transplant that will be denied him as long as he remains in prison. His still wife and mistress and homewrecker, Shirley, says that convicted murderers are not put on waiting lists for heart transplants. And it basically is a double death sentence for them.
Well, technically, we all have it. We're all going to die eventually.
And here's the thing. There's actually a lot of reasons why people can't always be recipients. And I'm sorry, you're in prison, my dude.
Convicted of murder.
Yeah. So you're not going to make the list. He's already in prison for a crime he did not commit, and now he cannot get the medical care that he needs to continue living. John remains in prison, and for him, time is running out. Is he a murderer or an innocent victim? If his operation is delayed much further, the answer will make no difference. That's where we end.
Did you notice, though, the 2 investigators?
Yeah.
Did you see what his wife was?
What?
An author who
Who
wrote
a book about this.
She wrote a book after this.
Yeah. See, here, guys, we're at 40 minutes already telling this story. I am
You've been
so
going.
sorry. And I've been trying to bust through this.
This was a long story.
It was a long story. All right, here's your update. It's unresolved. December 20th, 1989, John receives notice that the Governor Thomas denies his appeal for clemency. Then on July 3rd, 1990, John is admitted to the University of Illinois after doctors discovered he had a brain tumor. On August 7th, he is commuted his sentence to time served, granting his clemency, considering of his failing health. He had served 7 years in prison. That's all he served.
Yeah.
He was on the run longer than he was in prison for. A month later, on September 8th, he passed away from complications from the brain tumor. He was 64. I could find very little information, like I said, about Donna. She was born in Illinois. Her occupation was listed as homemaker. But I want to reiterate, Donna is a victim of domestic violence. And her murderer, because he is dead. He was convicted of her murder. Nothing ever changed. Spent the next 17, 18 years erasing her from the picture and making himself the victim. That's it. That's all I have.
Yeah. It's sad because she was murdered. And
yeah.
She deserves justice. And technically, according to the courts, she was given that. He raises his concerns.
Everyone has a right to an appeal.
Well, here's the thing. He raises his concerns. You know, our system is you're innocent until proven guilty.
Mm-hmm.
But a court of law said you were guilty. You can raise your concerns. People can have their opinions.
And all of the concerns that very valid he could have raised, including race being a factor, the judge not being a good guy, X, Y, or Z. That is what the court, there are proper channels to do that through.
Yeah. I mean, I just went off, I saw I mean, they told a story, you kind of take it at face value, but I did feel like Donna was kind of an afterthought on this.
They did not.
Which is terrible because
there's one picture of her on the internet. Every article, Ben, there's like a ton of articles about this.
I'm sure.
You know what every single one of them says? Dr. Slay's wife. Her name is not mentioned in the 20-something articles listed on the Wikipedia page about her and different things. Every single one of them gives more credence to this man has a doctorate degree. Or the civil rights activists convicted of more. Anyways, it breaks my heart. So I just wanted to be reminded that she was a victim of domestic violence. She's the victim of the story, and I'm sad to see that she's been erased from. Yeah. All right, real quick before Ben gets us, we had some fun downloads. We're going to lighten it up for just a second. Fishers, Indiana. Do you know where that's at?
Yes.
Oh,
I've been there.
You guys, I don't know how to pronounce these next two ones. Vandert Gard, Gard. This is the one I looked up. This is like in the south of France in this beautiful area. I don't know who you are that lives there that listen to this, but if you have a little chateau with an extra bedroom, Ben and I would love to come visit. And Farmington, Missouri. Fishers, Indiana. Perth, Western Australia. And
G'day, mate. Let's put another shrimp on the bobby.
We just lost any Australian listeners we have because that's probably the one line that every American says to them when they see them. True?
Yeah.
And then South Royalton, Vermont. So we are excited to have you guys. It's one of my favorite things to look at these places all over the world where we have some new downloads. All right, Ben.
All right.
What do you have for us?
Okay, I got a crazy story for you. Christmas Eve, 1931. Around 8 p.m., 56 miles outside of Phoenix, a family's driving along in their car. And guess what? It breaks down.
Thank goodness.
Husband gets out. He's starting to look at it. He says it's a fuel line of some sort. It's 1931. All right. You just fix cars on the side, which you did have to do that. This happened all the time back then. Like your cars would break down. You just had to fix it on the side of the road.
Okay.
Right. They were coming back from a day trip in the mountains. Right. And this is Ed and Julia Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
And they had their young cousins, John and Betty Mansfield, in the back. And Julia's like, hey, Ed, how long is this going to take? Oh, it's going to take a little bit. So she says, I got to get out and stretch my legs.
Yeah, going to go for a little jaunt out in the desert in the middle of winter.
She walks out maybe 150 feet. I don't know. We don't know exactly. And she sees a hat box. Have you ever seen a hat box?
I have a hat box in my bathroom underneath my sink.
That tracks. Okay. A hat box. And she says, hey, Ed, come look at this. And she open it up.
Okay. I'm going to stop you right there. If you found a box out in the desert.
Oh, no, I'd 100% look.
You would?
Oh, yeah. I find weird stuff in the desert all
I
the
know
time.
you do.
And I look at it all the time. 100%.
Okay.
So, yeah. They open it up. What do they find? A baby.
A baby.
I bet you all didn't see that coming, did you?
Not just, this is not a deceased baby.
No, alive baby.
It's alive. And it's happy and cute and perfect.
Yep. So they find this baby. They're like, oh my goodness, what do we do?
Guys, and I want to remind you, they're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So they take it to Mesa Police.
Mm-hmm.
And they take it to the constable. Constable. Back then I think the constable was way bigger. Like a bigger deal.
It was a big deal. Yeah.
And they tell them, we found this baby. That's crazy. So the constable takes it to Ma Dana.
Mm-hmm.
There's a midwife in Florence. She takes care of it. It's like, what is going on? Guess what? This makes the news. All right. This is a big deal.
Yeah, this is a miracle that a baby is found on the off chance that someone's car breaks down and a lady wanders.
We're going to get into that. So the doctor comes and looks at the baby, and he determines that the child was roughly a week old.
Okay.
So very newborn child.
But it's in general good health.
But in good health.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's reporters. This makes the newspaper, maybe the radio.
Oh.
I don't know.
Could have been.
All right. So guess what? The baby gets put up for adoption. February 16th, 1932, there's a hearing to have this child adopted. There's 17 couples that come forth and want to adopt this child. Right? A lot of people. The judge narrows it down to 2 families, and he ends up giving it to a family. And
Family B.
Yep. And he says, listen, this child needs to grow up. I'm going to seal the records of this child. He actually even tells the reporters they're not allowed to leave the courtroom until after the parents
He
and
did
the
not
child
want this baby to grow up sensationalized.
We're being followed by reporters. So the parents take
It's
this.
like Harry Potter. Oh my goodness.
And it's kind of not, though.
Yes.
No, because that was a family member.
Yeah, but no one was like, everything was sealed. He had to go live with the Muggles because.
No, we're not telling the story of Harry Potter on this podcast.
He didn't know. He just he needed to live a normal life as long as he could.
Do you want to do a podcast and recap Harry Potter?
Yes.
I think everyone knows the story. All right. So the parents take this child off and raise this baby girl for their rest of their lives, right? Okay. August 10th, 1986. A lady is dying. And she calls her daughter to her bedside and says, I have to tell you something. You were adopted.
Can you imagine? Ben, can you imagine?
Here's the thing. I'm only laughing. I'm not even, that is wild to tell your child.
On your deathbed.
Hey, you're adopted. That's crazy. What is going on out there?
I don't know.
Our children are doing something and they are just banging stuff around in the kitchen. All right. Anyways, she tells.
Here's the thing. Adoption has blessed our lives. We have amazing, niece and nephews and cousins who we love dearly because of adoption. It's a great thing. I do not understand the top secret, do not tell anybody. And then to tell a child on your deathbed.
Well, yes, adoption is a beautiful, amazing thing. But right now, parents have learned to share that information, right?
I just cannot imagine that bomb being dropped on you. At the same time, you're trying to mourn the looming passing of
This lady is 55 years old, has gone 55 years of her life.
She's not a teenager talking to her parents. She is a grandmother. She's an old woman at this point, or an older woman.
She's had a child of her own.
Yes.
Her whole life.
Is completely turned upside down.
And at 55 is told, guess what? You were adopted.
And you were the Hatbox baby.
Yeah. She tells her about the story of her. So we learn that this lady's name is Sharon Elliott. So, of course, this bomb gets dropped on her. Mm-hmm. So what does she want? She wants to find out about her life. Now she's curious. So she starts digging in. And of course, there's a lot of old articles about it, but pretty much the articles.
But then everything is sealed.
Yeah. The articles faded right after the child was adopted because no one actually ended up knowing who she was or where she went or what she did with her life.
Yeah.
So she starts looking into it. There's a company called the Orphanage Voyage. They started helping, the little private investigator or investigator for that.
They specialize in helping kids track down their records.
They went to the courts. Amazingly, the court said, we're going to unseal these records. Here you go. They're yours. You can look at them, do what you need with them and that. So Sharon gets on and she says, listen, this is crazy. I'm trying to find out my story. She then proceeds to say, Sharon says, I'm really skeptical of this whole story that I was found in a hat box in the middle of the desert. She says, what are the chances that a car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, just happening to be where I was left in the desert? So she thinks that story is not 100%, she thinks they were maybe covering for whoever they were trying to help out, but she just wants to know where she came from, who her parents are, and, if she has any other family or whatever.
Fair questions.
And that's where Unsolved Mysteries leaves us.
Yep.
All right. You ready for your update?
Yep.
Solved. Kind of.
Solved, caveat, sort of, kind of.
Yeah. So it took till 2018 to solve this. Okay. And I'm going to give credit. There's a reporter.
Journalist, yeah.
A journalist, John Deanna, with the AZ Central. He writes a 10-part series.
Yeah, guys, if you're intrigued by the story, go, because Ben's going to give you the cliff notes.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, can you put
I will put
a
it
link
in the
to this if you are curious? This guy not just writes the story. He it's very long.
It's very well,
but it's very well done.
Because he did it for how long?
So he said, I read he was actually contacted in 1988 by Sharon, and he did an article in the newspaper at the paper he was working at the time, and I can't remember it. And it actually got picked up and was distributed in newspapers and that all across the country.
Okay.
So he started this in 1988, and then he kept with it for 30 years.
Yeah.
He was telling this story at a conference.
This was his white whale, some might say, in the writing world.
Yeah. So
it's a Moby Dick reference, Ben, just in case you needed to know that.
Okay. All right. So he's telling this story and at some conference, like at a college or whatever, and a DNA pathologist.
DNA pathologist, yeah.
Lady comes up and says, "Hey, I'd like to work on this." So they worked on it for years. And they don't tell exactly, but she links her to a certain family. And then they find a cousin, a grandniece who's also linked. And she's able to narrow it down that she was born to a Walter and Frida Roth from Davenport, Iowa.
Yep.
They also had a son named James.
Second born son. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and we're married.
Yeah, well,
your kind of normal things. I think most people, our first thoughts were that this was at the time something out of wedlock and yada yada yada.
Technically was.
Yeah.
They were married 4 months after she was
born.
4 months before she was born.
Okay.
So she was
technically.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There's a lot on this, and let me just, because these are the questions. Did they really find this child in a hat box? Why did her parents just try to get rid of her? And once you find out that they were married, they had other kids, it just raises questions. We don't know.
Yeah.
Everything is skeptical.
Yeah.
This guy in the article, he does find a tie between like a cousin. It was a cousin of the father who lived in Arizona, but then his niece worked at a hospital. The tie is very, it's a weird tie. They think that that's how the family, like, because they're saying, how did this child get from Iowa to,
especially back then,
to Arizona?
Yeah,
we don't know. That's really not answered. The reporter ends up going out to Iowa, to Davenport in that area, talks to a guy who knew the son of the parents, and talks about he knew his mom, that technically her mom and her dad, and they were kind of quiet loners, kept to themselves. At least that's how he describes them.
And very protective of their son.
Very protective
like,
of their son.
Like, wouldn't let the other kids play with his toys in the neighborhood. Like, that's what this guy remembered. Like, this kid lived down the street from him, and the mother said, "You're not allowed to play with my son's toys." Yeah.
So there's a lot to this.
Yeah, you guys go read those articles because it's a very intense story. Long story short, they were able to genetically link her to her biological
by
parents.
DNA, and through genetic, all that. They linked her, and they feel very for certain, to this Walter and Frida Roth. And what's sad is this reporter goes out to Iowa, meets with people, and I guess the Davenport Public Library has a massive genealogy thing, and when he showed up, they had like a whole board, and they were showing him, like, yeah, man, look at all this research.
Yeah, they did a bunch of research on their behalf. Yeah,
and they do feel that they found the right person, because on the son's birth certificate, they had acknowledged that they'd had a child before but had deceased.
Yeah.
So they think, they had admitted that they'd had another child, but they said that it was deceased.
Even though they found them, the how and the why are never, that secret died with them.
Yeah, where there's a lot of they say, well, even
there were several family members that didn't even want to have anything to do with this investigator or this Pat Box lady because it felt weird to them.
Well, they talked to a family member. He doesn't say exactly, he won't give a name or that. A family member of the son, and asked, hey, will you submit a DNA so we can
make this for confirm.
Before they found the niece, they thought they had it, but they weren't entirely sure. And the family member said, absolutely not. If this is a secret that my grandparents or whatever my family buried, I don't want to unbury it. And so they don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
I will say this. So everyone is skeptical of Ed and Julia Stewart, who are the ones that said they found the child in the desert.
Yeah.
They were contacted and they were very upset that their story was scrutinized.
On Unsolved Mysteries?
Yep. And they said that. So I guess after it aired, and here's the thing, it was airing at different times. They said like each hour they were getting calls from people that knew them on the East Coast. And they were accusing, and they were mortified and very upset. They also found that niece, Betty Mansfield, and she swore the story. They swore the story.
That they accidentally found this baby?
Yeah, they were contacted by an investigator, and they were extremely upset and wrote a note and said, this is our story. This is true. Do not contact us again. Do you think someone left
that baby in the desert to die then? That's the only alternative.
Here's the thing.
Either this was set up for them to find it, or someone intended for that little baby to not make it.
If that is the case, then God's hand truly did work.
Christmas Eve. And that's where I guess, the story
in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. I don't know. I have no idea. These people are swearing that the story they told is true. So anyways, technically it is solved. They found out with the parents. The mother died in 1991. The father died in 2005.
Yeah.
He lived to be.
Didn't she pass away the day she found out or something?
So the day the reporter returned.
She was in hospice. Yeah.
Sharon Elliott died that day.
Yeah.
The reporter returned from Iowa.
Yeah.
So she knew, they told her that they figured it out.
And I think she got to talk to the niece or whoever. No, she never did.
She wanted to. She didn't. She was in the hospital. She didn't want to talk to the niece.
Until she was on the up and up.
And the niece recorded a message for her, but she never got to see it.
Hear it. Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, there's a lot to this. Some of it is very sad, but technically it is
interesting.
Solved.
Okay. All right. Real quick before I get into our last story, I just wanted to let everybody know some exciting news. We now have merch. It's stickers.
Just stickers. Are you a sticker person?
I have stickers on my laptops and on my water bottles. You have stickers on your lunchy box.
Yeah. I like stickers.
Yeah.
But I'm always afraid to put them on things. Because I'm like, is this really why I want this sticker to go? Okay,
well, that's not helpful to our people. Our people want to have a sticker.
You only get one. So make it count.
Okay. So our stickers, as of right now, are absolutely free. You guys, the only thing that we are asking in return is that you leave a 5-star rating and review anywhere you listen to your podcast that allows you to do so. Or you share it with a friend, or you share it on social media. All you got to do is take a screenshot of that and then shoot me an email, unsolvedcouplepod@gmail.com, or on Instagram, you can DM me, unsolvedcouplepod, or on TikTok, unsolvedcouplepod, and I will get a thank you card and a sticker dropped in the mail. The really pretty, shiny, fancy pink ones that I made specifically for the girly girls. I have a very limited number of those ones. And then the other one. But yeah, I took our logo that Evie designed for us and made these stickers and worked really hard on them. I'm excited. I just wanted to be able to do something to thank people for their support. So as of right now, these are just free stickers. They're high quality. They're there for you guys. I'd love to get them to you. So please share, rate, review all of those, and follow us on social media so I can get you those stickers. All right. Are you ready for our last story?
Yeah, this one is.
I know. So you guys, this episode is ugh.
It's a sad
one.
It's a very sad one.
All of us are familiar with department store Santas and street corner Santas who appear happy and jolly always in the month of December. These men are cheerful symbols of the season. Yet, there is one Santa Claus who, behind his jaunty smile, has been hiding a broken heart for more than 40 years. He hopes that someone can help bring a happy ending to his story. In 1973, near the end of the Great Depression, the economy was slowly beginning to improve. However, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania remained hard hit. Breadlines were still common. Good jobs were hard to come by, and 20-year-old Joseph Felix could only find work as a Western Union delivery boy. Western Union back then was like telegrams and messages, I think, right? Because now it's how you send money to people.
Yeah.
So, against the backdrop of the Great Depression, he, however, found a wife, and neither of them really had a lot of family ties, and fell in love and got married, and were both eager to start a family. 2 months after the wedding, Garrett became pregnant. The wife became pregnant on June 16th, 1939. Joe was at work at the Western Union with 14 cents to his name. Adjusted for inflation, what's your guess?
Like $4.
$3.22. He learned from a coworker that his wife had gone into labor. Neither of them thought that this would happen so quickly. And they thought, including the doctor, that she still had a little bit more time and still had additional time to prepare over the next few weeks. When he arrived home, he ran up 3 flights of stairs, eager about the upcoming birth of his child. His wife was further along in labor than they had expected. The landlady had already called for a doctor, but he had not yet arrived. This is terrifying to me. Joe did what he could to help his wife with the delivery. He did not realize how quickly the baby would be born. When she came out, he and his wife were elated. They said it was like a package sent from heaven. At 1 p.m., the doctor finally showed up, walked in, pronounced both mother and daughter seemed to be in good health, congratulated the parents, and left. Over the next hour, him and his wife held their daughter in their arms and talked to her. Joe said she was very calm and would have never guessed that she had just given birth, that his wife was very calm and had not just given birth from her demeanor. They were both very pleased with their daughter. They did not have the means for a bassinet, so Joe wrapped her in a blanket and placed her in the bottom of a dresser drawer. If that is not like quintessential
humble means.
Yeah, humble means, exactly. His wife took a short nap and woke up and was acting strange. He said that she turned to him and said, "If anything is to happen to me, please make sure that Alice Miller gets the baby." Alice, who lived on the north side and was an elderly neighbor and a friend of the couple, had helped raise her. The two were very close, and she was like a second mother. At 4 p.m., she woke up again, mumbled something to her husband, and said, "Take care of the baby," closed her eyes, and passed away. Joe tried to wake her up, but soon realized that she was gone and left completely numb. He could not believe what he was experiencing. Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. Joe followed his wife's wishes and took his daughter, Alberta, to Alice Miller. He was relieved because he knew that Alberta would be taken care of and raised properly. He felt that Alice was a very good woman with loving and caring personality. At the time, good jobs were really hard to find. Side research, they did not say this in Unsolved Mysteries, but it helps a little bit. Joe decided to move to the New England to look for work. And so he was the first, until 1941, able to see his daughter from time to time. So he was in communication and able to...
He didn't just leave.
He didn't just leave. But November 1941, 1 week before Pearl Harbor, he enlisted in the Army Marine Corps, feeling that this was going to be his best chance to gain some financial security in order to help get his daughter either back or help her be raised by this woman. He was assigned to basic training in Massachusetts and was shipped out to the Pacific Theater. Alberta never left his mind. During his entire time of service, he kept a prayer book with him, this really tiny one, and inside was a picture of his daughter, and it was the only picture of her he had. Joe wrote to the Millers on multiple occasions. However, he never received a reply. He had no communication with Alice at all during his time in the military. In August of 1943, he suffered a head injury during the air raids in the Panama Canal Zone. After treatment, he was plagued with intermittent neck and back pain, and in 1944 was shipped to Boston Hospital for further treatments. On his way, the plane stopped at the airport in Pittsburgh. While there, the plane had 30 minutes for refueling. He was given permission to call Alice and wanted to see how his daughter Alberta was doing. She should have been around 5 years old. When he called, a woman who he did not recognize the voice answered the phone. He told her who he was and said that she responded to him that he was supposed to be dead and that Alberta had been legally adopted. She further stated that Alberta's adoption records were sealed and he would never see her again. Finally, she said, "You abandoned your daughter and we want no part of you," and hung up the phone. The nameless woman on the phone left him dumbfounded and just blown away. Despite Joe's best efforts, he was unable to locate his daughter. However, he never stopped trying. In 1946, he married for a second time, moved to Vermont, where he worked as a clerk in the Veterans Office. A year later, at Christmas time, he phoned a little girl in the neighborhood, acting as Santa Claus's helper. She was delighted. Soon, all of the other hood neighbor children were clamoring for Santa to call them as well. By next Christmas, a local radio station had put Joe on the air. Soon, newspapers from across the country, telephone operators everywhere were referring young callers who would like to speak to Santa Claus to call into this radio station. He said he enjoyed doing it because he knew that he was doing something good for others. At the time, he was still searching for his daughter and had just a hope that maybe a needle in a haystack, Alberta would hear of him through this. Alberta was born on June 16th, 1939 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She would be adopted out by Alice Miller's home before her 5th birthday. The husband and wife were estranged from their families, but his wife, who had passed away, did have one brother and one sister, and so there's kind of some information out there, and that's where Unsolved Mystery leaves us. All right. Are you ready for your update?
Yeah.
So yes, this man's looking for his daughter.
Yeah. I mean, golly.
Yeah.
Terrible.
All right. February 1990. A genealogical researcher named Nancy read about Joe's search in the Pittsburgh Press. She was familiar with the records from that time period in Pittsburgh and decided to help him with his search. Although he had assumed Alberta had been adopted, Nancy actually didn't believe that that was the case, because even at that time, an adoptive family would have needed permission, and since he was enlisted in the military, his records would have been very easy to find. She found a marriage license which showed that Alberta, then 17, had married a 29-year-old named Arthur Depew, and he was a dynamite blaster. On February 16th, 1957, the license said that Alberta's father's first name was Felix and that he was Canadian and that he was deceased, all of which were untrue. Nancy sent this information to Joe, and he contacted Arthur's mother, who was living in New York. She told him that tragically, Alberta had died in a car explosion in Pittsburgh's North Side on July 25th, 1957. She was only 18 at the time.
Who told him that? Her husband's mother?
Mm-hmm. So her mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A friend of Joe's went to the library in Oakland after hearing this story and found a newspaper story about the explosion because the mother-in-law gave no further information. On the day of her death, Arthur, her husband, convinced Alberta to meet with him so that they could discuss their relationship. They had separated a few weeks earlier. I don't know, could have been that she was 17 and he was 29. Weirdo. Arthur lured Alberta into a 1954 light green Plymouth that he had rigged with dynamite. He parked it on East Ohio Street. The dynamite was concealed under the floorboards below her seat. According to relatives, he had previously been very vocal about the fact that he would blow himself and Alberta up if she refused to get back together with him. So he put the two wires together, causing the dynamite to explode. The car was destroyed, both murdering her and taking his life. Tragically, an 8-year-old girl was walking by from the ice cream store up the street who was also murdered by this.
This is terrible.
Assistant Police Chief Rocco, Chief Rocco had previously helped Joe with his search, also discovered that Alberta had been raised by a woman named Grace Williams. As Nancy suspected, she had never legally been adopted. This woman basically kidnapped this baby.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, Chief Rocco remembered the explosion that killed Alberta because she had been working as a rookie police officer in Pittsburgh at the time. Hmm. That's your update. Is that crazy?
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
It's awful.
Well, because all Unsolved Mysteries says is that she died in an explosion. I was like, okay, that's not a normal thing.
Yeah, I know. I knew it wasn't either, but...
But explosion, I guess with the time and stuff, maybe it was where she was working or something like that, some tragedy. But this is a tragedy, but this was a murder-suicide from an abusive man who could not handle the fact that this girl didn't want to be with him anymore.
Yeah, but...
And here's the thing, she never knew this, obviously. She had a father who loved her, and she was kidnapped and raised by a stranger who lied and was deceitful.
Yeah, I mean...
I know.
It breaks my heart. Because that girl's life, she didn't have her dad, and we can get into... I'm not going to...
Yeah.
I'm not going... I don't know what it was
I tried to look up even stories about this thing because it was in the newspaper, obviously, at the time. It was a big news story that a car explodes, killing an innocent child and a woman that's in an abusive relationship. There wasn't a ton about her early life, and it doesn't seem like any charges were ever or any investigation was ever done about the woman who raised her. So, yeah. I don't know. I found the obituary of several women from that area, 2 of which had the same name, and the timelines kind of lined up, but there was no mention of a daughter.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. That is our recap of season 2, episode 12. I don't want to end on such sad stories, but that's the name of the game sometimes. So please stick around, and I've got a question for Ben that maybe will lift our spirits a little bit.
All
right. Ben.
Okay.
If you could change the ending of either a movie or a TV show or a book or, some sort of iconic pop culture thing and rewrite it, what would it be?
I don't know. You're going to have to go first.
I don't even know why I'm going to start making you come up with the questions. Okay. Obviously Titanic.
You can't.
Yep, I'm going to rewrite Titanic.
That
no, listen,
is history.
No, I'm not talking about the ship not sinking. That happened. We can't change that.
All right. Oh, sorry.
The movie Titanic.
All right, go for it.
All right. Jack lives because the door could fit them both. True. Also, there was multiple other pieces of wood floating around, so why couldn't he find... Anyways, we don't have to get into that. Jack lives, and then the other thing I would change, where does that old lady get off? Throwing that Hope Diamond back into the ocean at the end. She yeets that thing right off the ship. Not to mention that her granddaughter that just found out that her grandmother was hooking up in the back of the car with a starving artist. Maybe, I don't know, that grandmother could have taken a little bit of accountability and said, hey, I just got this bazillion-dollar diamond handed to me. This is generational wealth, life-changing money. And she's the villain in the story. She is the villain. First off, there was nothing wrong with her actual man that she was engaged to. We all get that Leo at the time was hot, but unless you're 20 years old, he doesn't date you. So we'll move on from that. Then she lets this man freeze to death in the ocean, does not do anything about it. Does she go back with her husband that she was engaged to, or the man she was engaged to?
I have no idea.
I don't remember either. And then makes her daughter take her on this adventure to go onto this boat somewhere to meet with these scientists and record her story, and then just tosses away millions of dollars into the ocean. She is the villain of that movie. So I'd change all of that. And then I would have changed the ending of Friends and made it much more obvious that Ross and Rachel were happy and back together. And I would have gotten them back together several seasons earlier.
You just want it all to work out.
Yeah.
And everything.
Okay. But the Titanic thing?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Did that...
No.
You got nothing?
I got nothing out of that.
There's not a movie that ended, or you know how many shows we've watched and you're like, that is the stupidest thing. I'm not watching this anymore.
The only thing, and here's the thing, anything I'm going to say, it's going to be recent because I'm not, I can't think back to anything. I didn't ask nothing has like bothered me for a long time. I've never watched Lost. So I know that's a big thing. People are all over that.
Yeah.
The only problem I have with shows right now is one, they don't really ever tell the story.
They have filler episodes.
Oh, it's just so much going on.
But that's not the question.
The one show that has bothered me that they don't answer questions, and I really just hate it. I hated how it, at least the first season. I haven't watched the other season, so maybe things. Is that one show? I can't remember. Is it Here? The one with the crazy things that come out at night?
Oh.
They get stuck in that town and now they're just in this loop.
It's not called Here, I don't think. Is it called? It's not Alone.
No, it's not Alone.
Yeah.
But you know what show I'm talking about.
But what's funny is it was written by the same people that wrote Lost. Did you know that?
That tracks.
That tracks, yeah.
There's this show, and there's probably not a lot of people that there's this show, you get stuck in this town, and then at night, these crazy, they look like humans, but they're monsters. They come and they like terrorize the town.
Yeah.
And you watch this whole first season and you think something's coming. There's going to answer questions.
Yeah.
And it just ends with nothing. Nothing. And I hated it. It bothered me. I hated it.
I thought you were going to say Walking Dead.
No, because I got bored with Walking Dead.
From is the show.
From.
Yeah.
See, I was close.
Yeah.
Here, from.
Just another random 4-letter word.
Just a random word.
That still doesn't change an ending. You really sometimes just
suck at this.
Yeah. And it just don't answer the question and then just say something
I just
random.
do filler. Yeah, I know. I'm a politician.
Apologize to the people.
I'm a politician. I don't answer your question. And then I just talk randomly in hopes that by the end of me talking, you've forgotten what
You didn't
we
read a
were
book or anything that you were like, that is the stupidest way to end this. This was a big waste of my time.
All right.
Okay.
I'll give you one.
All right.
A book.
All right.
I guess technically they made them movies.
Okay.
The Hunger Games books.
Oh, yeah. Ben.
I read those books. When I was at the academy, I read a lot of books. That's what I did in my spare time. And those were 3 books I read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we read them together. I think because I had newborn babies at home.
Yeah, well, you were at home and I was reading them.
Yeah.
And when I read that last book, the whole point of that girl
volunteering
was to save her sister, and her sister dies in the 3rd book.
Okay, spoiler alert.
Okay, whatever. I'm spoiling it. Also, the Titanic sinks, just so you know. Spoiler. The whole thing. Her sister does.
I agree.
I will say that is you did jog me. That was the one book I got so pissed at the end. I was like, so the whole thing, this thing was set up, the whole thing, and it's ruined. And then I can't even remember how it ends. I think they don't really make the world a better place.
It literally ends up being for naught.
And I also remember I read those Maze Runner books, and I think those ended stupid too.
Yeah, they went off on a weird.
They did go off, and I was really kind of irritated with it. So.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
Well, we finally got an answer out of Ben, you guys.
That was my politician answer that it took, what, 7 minutes to give you a 30-second answer.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Okay, well, we will see you guys again next week when Ben and I recap the original gateway drug into true crime.
Unsolved Mysteries.
Bye.